Hello everyone, we are live from Gen Con 2019, another beautiful morning here in Indianapolis, Indiana, from the hotel conference room at the Holiday Inn Express, and we have one purpose, and that is to talk about these Nemesis cards in Marvel Champions because we cannot stop thinking about this game.
That's right, so we covered all of the signature cards for the heroes. It's a set of 15 cards that comes with every hero from the core set of Marvel Champions, and those have to be used with those heroes, but you also, with each hero, get a Nemesis. And throughout games, Nemesis can show up to kind of ruin the day. So, for example, Spider-Man's Nemesis is the Vulture, and he may not be the villain you're fighting against, but he always has the possibility of showing up. So we're going to be covering those, and then we're also, after this, going to be doing a series of videos about the various aspects of the game, so you'll want to stay tuned for that.
If we have time, which I think
right.
we will. And this is one of the cool things. So Arkham does kind of something like this. You have like weaknesses, and so things can show up that are annoying to you, and then it kind of creates this side quest or side plot that you have to do sometimes to not fail, basically, or to have like dire consequences. This one, kind of the whole team a lot of times is having to deal with your nemesis showing up, and you particularly are oftentimes targeted or having to run through those frustrations. So one of the cool things about this is we played the first night, and Black Panther's nemesis showed up. Played the second night, and not a single nemesis showed up the entire game.
Which is pretty cool.
So it does create this kind of even though you could play through the same scenario multiple times, there's an organic nature to it where sometimes this compounding with Vulture showing up was just too much for us to handle, whereas another time it would have been just fine. So
and it's worth pointing out, too, that what we did see in the second game were several of our obligations, which actually work a lot more like the weaknesses in Arkham, I think, which is they're a card that will pop up when you're playing the game, essentially. And this is something bad that happens. So like Spider-Man's is he has to rinse due and he doesn't have the money to pay it.
Yeah.
And you kind of have a couple of bad choices. So those showed up plenty of times in that game. And that's where we'll kick things off. So we're going to start with Captain Marvel. These are the cards we're going to look through first, and it's all of the obligations and Nemesis cards.
Right on. The bad things that might be pulled into the game. So starting with Family Emergency, which is the Carol Danvers obligation, you can flip to alter ego form as a kind of a function of these obligation cards. So you always have the option. And now sometimes, in some situations, that might be very beneficial, where you get a random flip out of nowhere during the enemy phase, which could be really nice. You can flip to alter ego form, and then you must choose. Exhaust Carol Danvers to remove Family Emergency from the game. And you'll see this choice a lot, where you can sacrifice essentially your turn to never have to deal with this again, or you can ride the lightning a little bit more. You were stunned, this card gains Surge, and you discard it. So it can either totally exhaust you for a turn, or it can stun you, and then you draw a new card. And if you do that one, then you might have that Family Emergency pop up again. And so it's just kind of saying, thanks, Grams, well, I'll be back later. Or, hey, here's some super medicine.
It's kind of funny, because either you go deal with it, or you're stunned. You're stunned by the news, right? I think that's a hilarious thematic play there.
Yeah.
And it's worth pointing out, too, so the kind of structure of what's going on here. The first thing that happens when you're fighting against the villain during that phase is they will actually either scheme or fight against you, depending on whether you're in alter ego or hero form. And then after you do a round of fighting, you also get a round of cards that come out.
Yeah.
So at the top of this, it says give to the Carol Danvers player. So no matter who draws this, you take it and you hand it to the Carol Danvers player, which is kind of funny because if it surges, I'm the one that has to deal with the next card. And if it doesn't surge, then I just don't have to deal with the card, and it was your problem.
It's really helpful whenever the other person just deals with it, and you're like, sweet, no card for me.
That's what I did. I think a couple times I had to hand over yours to you, and you were like, oh my goodness. And then it's like exhaust, stun, do a dance, whatever. Cool. And it also, if it flips during an attack, you'll see the bottom right, there's those 2 pips, and that means that it adds 2 damage to an attack or a scheme whenever that's going on.
And that's a little, I'd say the average is 1, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's about.
And then 2, and then some of the real cards are 3.
And then
it's
there's
probably
of course
a sliding
zeros.
Curve there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at the actual Nemesis reality. Can you read it? You sure you don't need to do
I got it. It's sideways, so I may be doing this a little bit. So the scheme, it's called a side scheme. So the main scheme is what the core villain is trying to do to win the game. And side schemes are kind of subplots going on. It's called the Psyche Magnetron. It says the Psyche Magnetron is a Kree device with the power to turn thoughts into reality. This is going horrible. In the hands of Jan Rog, it would be a devastating weapon. When revealed, place an additional 1-player threat here. So 1 threat per player here.
Starts with 3, and then you get an additional 1 per player.
Yeah, so if it starts with 3, you see the little 3 icon there. And if there's 3 players, you're going to end up with 6 on this. So you have to thwart 6 against it for it to go away. And then it's got the plus little card symbol. And that means that when you're dealing cards for people to basically get and resolve, there's going to be an extra one that goes to the first player. It's not just the first player, so it's circular. So if there were multiple plus cards, technically, like it would cascade around the board.
Nice.
Which is not good.
And that's a bummer because all of those cards are terrible. So these side schemes, generally, you want to get rid of them as fast as possible. This one's not terribly hard. If we had 3 players, that's 6 threat. I feel like a dedicated turn could get rid of that one.
Yeah.
But what does it do?
Yeah. Next up, Yanrog himself. He's unique. He's got 2 scheme, 3 attack with a little star next to it. That means it triggers the ability on the card. He's also got 5 health, which is a pretty healthy, villain. And so, also worth pointing out, basically these cards are not in the deck unless that side scheme comes out. So once the side scheme comes out, you add this stack of cards into the deck. You shuffle it up, and we're off to the races. His special ability that triggers when he attacks is after Yanrog attacks, place 1 threat on Psyche Magnetron.
Yep, makes sense.
So he kind of gets to fight and scheme all at the same time, no matter what you do.
Love it.
Yep.
And he's got 5 health. That's pretty good. Can I, let me look at Cream Manipulator here.
Get in
It's a
there.
treachery card. It has Surge, so you reveal an additional card after. Surge is the worst in every game.
Yeah, it's something bad plus
devastating.
something else. Yeah.
When revealed, place 1 threat on the main scheme, and then it has a nice little boost whenever you reveal it as a boost card for a different attack. If the villain is making an undefended attack, place 1 threat on the main scheme. So welcome to threat on the main scheme from the Cream Manipulator.
And essentially, when you're getting attacked, you have the choice to defend, which is exhaust a character, and then remove their defense from the attack. But if you do that, kind of like if you tap or exhaust when you are getting an obligation, going into your next hero turn, you will be exhausted. So you won't get to do whatever it is you want to do.
It's tough. I mean, we had, I feel like defending, I think there are some decks that are going to defend a lot, and you can defend for other people, which is really meaningful. But in kind of the standard spread of heroes that we were playing out of the core set, the defending ability kind of starts to come into play more in very big moments where it matters, like where you need to protect somebody from dying, or where there's a really weird thing happening, and I think the only way that I can get through this is defending. So it's not like a common thing. So undefended attacks are fairly common in our experience.
I think that will happen quite a bit. It looks like there's 2 of him in the deck, and then we also get Yanrog's Treason.
Cool art.
1 pip on it. Yeah, he looks very evil here. When revealed, discard each energy resource, nailed it, from your hand. If you discard no cards this way, this card gains Surge.
Okay.
So he has the ability to like wreck a hand.
So I think I had, of 6 cards last night, I had 5 energy at one point, energy resource cards.
Yikes.
So
that would be devastating.
Yeah, this kind of a card could be disastrous.
Yeah.
So there's Captain Marvel.
It's funny. I mean, I feel like with that card, it's literally either going to wreck you or just not do anything.
But if it doesn't do anything, it gains Surge.
Yeah, which is fine. That's better than losing your hand.
Fine.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. It is. You're right.
Hard to dispute that statement. All right, next up, we're going to look at the She-Hulk obligation and series of Nemesis cards, which this is the obligation you saw several times.
I saw it a couple of times. Yeah, I was doing a lot of lawyering last night.
Yes, you were. Legal work. Give to Jennifer Walters' player, which obviously was you last night. You may flip to alter ego form, choose exhaust Jennifer Walters, remove legal work from the game, or give the main scheme 1 acceleration token, discard this obligation. So an acceleration token means that, and that's on the main scheme. For that scheme, at the start of the villain phase, basically, you put a threat token on it for every player. So that's the typical. It could be more technically, but so for us it was usually 3, and then in this case, if it has an acceleration token, you do a 4th one. So that gets pretty out of hand pretty quickly.
That's 2 acceleration, you do 5, 3 acceleration to 6. Now this is a pretty fascinating one. So playing She-Hulk last night, I wasn't terribly sad to see this a lot of the time, because She-Hulk has this ability where you flip into She-Hulk, you do 2 damage to an enemy. So being able to get a free flip back to alter ego form, potentially use the Eye Object ability where you can reduce threat from any other encounter cards that happen around the board, and then being able to flip back into She-Hulk on my upcoming player turn,
and still do 2 damage.
Actually pretty handy. So sometimes these obligations can work out for you in a meaningful way. And you can exhaust her and move it from the game, or you can, as you said, the main scheme gets an acceleration token.
Yeah.
And I don't know, these kinds of cards, I always just have the sense that I should be exhausting. but you never feel like you have the opportunity. So it's a really good problematic decision to be made, which is the way an obligation should feel.
There's not enough breathing room that you feel like you can just take a turn off kind of a thing. Yeah, and I think acceleration tokens, obviously, in the first half of the game are just horrible.
Just never do it.
Yeah.
I don't like any of the bad stuff.
All right, the side scheme, personal challenge. Let's try this again. Titania has held a grudge against She-Hulk for years. She won't rest until she settles the score. When revealed, place an additional threat here for every player, and it starts with 3 threats, so same scenario as the last time. And then it's got the exclamation point with the explosion.
You remember that? It means that you have to place threat there before you can place it on the main scheme.
Ah, there it is.
Yeah.
No, I was like, click. It's like, oh my goodness.
I think I literally heard the gears.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
You could hear the sound. And it also, if it gets revealed as a bonus card, it's +3 on the attack on this.
Yeah, and that's a lot because Titania is tough. And this is one of those cards, so it's going to bring 6 threat on a 3-player game, 7 threat on a 4-player game. Sometimes you find yourself in these situations. We certainly have twice now of the 2 games that we've played fully through, where you have a delicate teeter-totter that you're doing with the main scheme, where it's like it's about one really bad turn away from being either totally flipped up or like really close. So things like this that come out randomly that all of a sudden say that we cannot remove threat from the main scheme is a real problem.
You got to get rid of this one fast.
Yeah, that could be a real issue.
You got to settle that score as quickly as possible. Of course, we have Titania. She's a minion, one scheme, X attack, 6 health, brute and elite traits with a +2 pips. X is equal to Titania's remaining hit points. So she has a 6 attack up front, which is wild.
That's unbelievable.
So you kind of, in the same way that you have to deal with her side scheme, I think you have to deal with her.
That's actually tremendous. Wow, 6 attack.
Yeah, if you just ignore her, she could put the pain on.
She will.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I mean, yeah. She's pretty simple, but great. If you're in your alter ego form, then
Can you give me more commentary on 6 attack, please?
She just schemes, right? You could avoid it for a little bit.
Yeah, if you go to lawyer mode, I always assume that she's going to be attacking She-Hulk. I guess that's not always true, but
yeah. Look at
one
those spikes
scheme,
on
not
her arm,
much.
by the way.
She's not much of a schemer. She seems like more of a fighter.
She looks like a fighter, yeah.
That's
what I'd say.
That brute trait gives you.
All right. Next, we have genetically enhanced. It's an attachment attached to the minion with the highest printed hit points. If there are no minions in play, this card gains surge. Attached minion gets +3 hit points. So if it happens to hit on Titania, she's +3. Now she's a 9.
Wow, that's awesome.
It particularly, sometimes you won't be able to attack her, where it's like you're stunned or you're exhausted. She comes out, the next round's happening. Could be bad. Could be very bad.
I like that little thing. And otherwise, it could just give other minions who are really problematic for you. Like I'm going to guess in the game, that you're going to have some 1 to 2 health things that are terribly bad for you. But hey, they're easy to take care of.
And then bam, it's got 4 health.
All of a sudden, you're genetically enhanced, and there you go.
All right, next up, Titania's Fury. It's a treachery card. When revealed, Titania attacks your hero. If Titania did not attack, heal all damage from Titania, and this card gains Surge. And then it's got a damage and a star in the bottom corner, which means it both adds 1 and gives the villain 1 additional boost card for this activation.
That's tough. That's a great boost card for the enemy deck. I love this card where if Titania doesn't attack, you get to heal all damage and then draw a new card.
Yeah.
That could be absolutely devastating. You work that 9 health down to 1 or 2, and then all of a sudden it's fully healed.
All the way back. And there's 2 of these in the deck, so you'll be seeing this one more often than not once you draw that. And
nice.
Again, most of these cards, only the side scheme is in the deck until the side scheme comes out, and then you add the other cards in. You ready to hop over to the next one?
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got business problems for old Tony Stark. It's an obligation. Give it to the Tony Stark player. You can flip to your alter ego form. I like that this one says alter ego and not Tony Stark. And all of them say give to the X player. Okay,
yeah,
I got it.
Give to the Tony Stark player. Yeah.
Choose exhaust Tony Stark, remove business problems from the game, of course.
Classic.
Or exhaust each upgrade you control. Discard this
there's
obligation.
no way you'll ever do that, unless at the very beginning.
Yeah, as Iron Man, you're going to play a lot of those upgrades, and you do not want to just exhaust them like that. So that's pretty cool. It's like very much built for him, right?
Absolutely.
And his side scheme is imminent overload. Whiplash has seized control of a power plant, threatening to overload the transformers if the demands are not met. When revealed, place an additional threat for every player. And then it's got the +1 with the like arrow house looking icon,
Acceleration,
which is the
I think,
acceleration token. So you add one to the main scheme, an extra threat every time. And it's got 3 starting, so you're probably going to be somewhere between 4 and 7 there. And it adds 3. A lot of these add 3.
I think all of them I've seen so far are adding 3.
So if it shows up as a card, it gets in play, and if it doesn't, it's a +3, which is just bad.
There's nothing we can do about it, though, you know?
Look how
Don't you
cool
wish?
he looks.
Whiplash
You wanna read
looking
him?
great. I love whips. I don't know what it is about it. I once played a D&D character that was specializing in whips. That's about all that I have to say about that.
All right, Whiplash.
Has a 2 scheme, a 3 attack, and is criminal traded.
4 health.
Has retaliate 1, which means if you attack it, you take 1 back, and 4 health. So this is a good example of if in some terrifying universe Whiplash is out and then gets genetic modification from Titania, you're looking at a 7 health, 3 attack bad boy with retaliate 1.
Yeah, and most attacks are doing 1 to 3 damage, and then there are cards that will let you do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 damage. But you really don't want to use those on the minions, right? It's kind of a weird thing. So 4 is quite a bit for a minion.
Yep.
And he looks awesome. Electric Whip attack. It's a treachery card. When revealed, choose to either deal 1 damage to your hero for each upgrade you control. That's very bad against Iron Man. Or choose and discard an upgrade you control.
Cool.
Still very bad.
This is devastating for Iron Man. That's great.
So good. And then if it flips when you're boosting, if the villain is making an undefended attack, choose and discard an upgrade you control. So either direction, it's looking to get rid of some of your upgrades. And there's 2 of these in the deck.
And you know Iron Man's not defending.
No way.
Maybe with some allies.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Next, we get Electromagnetic Backlash. When revealed, each player discards the top 5 cards of their deck. For each printed energy resource a player discards this way, that player takes a damage.
Nice. That's very thematic too,
Good.
right?
Yeah, it's
The
just like
energy
electrocutes
resource.
you.
Yeah.
Super cool. And that's it for the Iron Man. That's definitely, of the ones we've seen so far, probably my favorite, just because of how particular it is to Iron Man.
And it seems like of all the heroes, Iron Man has the most particular playstyle, right? It's very much like when you're playing Spider-Man, you kind of feel like you can do it a few different ways. Iron Man, no matter how you slice it, that card pool is about building your upgrades and getting that suit going.
Yeah, and so he has a nemesis to match, essentially.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, next up, we have Black Panther's obligation, Affairs of State. He's being challenged. Give to the T'Challa player. You may flip to alter ego form, choose exhaust T'Challa, remove Affairs of State from the game. Of course, that's the normal. Choose and discard a Black Panther upgrade. You control, discard this obligation. So he kind of works like Iron Man in that way, where he wants to have these upgrades attached, and getting rid of one is kind of a bummer. And when you discard it, it stays in the deck. That's one thing to note here.
I'm only now fully appreciating what this means. So exhaust T'Challa on the top level bullet means if you didn't flip to alter ego form, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Because you're technically not in the T'Challa form.
100%.
So if you decide to stay in hero form, the only option that you have is discarding a Black Panther upgrade to discard the obligation. That's really cool. So you've got to basically downsize to your alter ego form to even have the option to remove it from the game.
Just thematically speaking, right, it's like you have an obligation as a person that comes up, and you either decide to take off the mask and the suit and go deal with it. You're exhausted, so you're having to deal with this thing, or not.
Or in the case of She-Hulk, put on the suit.
That's right, the literal suit. Okay, next up we have Usurp the Throne. It's a side scheme. Obviously it adds 3. It's got some flavor text there, but it doesn't do anything. It's just 3
per player. Let's not sleep on that. So that'd be 9 for us.
Yep, and then +1 card. So you add a card being dealt when we're in the dealing card
I have
phase.
some hot information on this deck. That's called Hazard. So
right.
There's Crisis, which is
the
you have to
exclamation
deal
point.
with this first. There's Acceleration, which means that the threat is accelerating. And then you have Hazard, which means that you get additional encounter card.
Very cool.
Hazardous things.
And then, of course, your favorite, we get Killmonger, who we saw a lot. He's a minion, 2 scheme, 2 attack, 5 health. Killmonger cannot take damage from Black Panther upgrades.
It's really quite good, because that was one of the more frustrating things I was constantly dealing with as a Black Panther. It's like my whole shtick just doesn't work. So what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, and it's super thematic, because it's essentially Killmonger is challenging him to the throne, and they have the I don't know if you've seen the movie or not, but they fist fight.
Yeah.
To see who's going to win.
Why has he got a gun?
And, well, he's a cheater.
Grant has a question. Are there multiple copies of Obligations? Just one.
Yep.
Only one. And for some reason, it shows up all of the time.
Yeah, I mean, there's 3 of them in the deck, and you're going through. I mean, you're.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, there's less of the because the card that actually brings out your Nemesis is in the scenario or not. So how many of those are in each deck, I have no idea, but I know that there's 3 obligations going on. So the odds of someone hitting those are pretty high. Next up, we have Heart-Shaped Herb. It's a treachery card, Surge, which is a bummer. When revealed, give the villain in each minion engaged with you a tough status card. And tough, the first time you take damage, when you have tough, you cancel the damage and get rid of the tough. It's also got a boost ability, give the villain a tough status card, which is also pretty annoying.
That's really, yeah, it's so annoying. It can be problematic.
And then we have 2 ritual combats.
Some of the best art in the game.
It looks really cool.
Some would say. Jonathan certainly
really
agrees
cool.
with that.
When revealed, discard the top card of the encounter deck, then choose to either deal X damage to your hero or place X threat on the main scheme. X is 1 more than the number of boost icons on the discarded encounter card.
Very good.
Man,
very,
if you
very
discard
good.
a 4 or a 3 and it's +1 for 4.
Yep. 4 damage to your hero or 4 threat, neither of those are good.
Nope, that is
I don't know if you guys are familiar with
a whole lot of pain.
numbers and being large.
Yeah, 4 is a big number compared to 1. Some would say it's 4 times as much. All right, next up we have Spidey's obligation and Nemesis. We get the eviction notice, which is really funny. Not funny because it's sad, but it's funny because it's very thematic. It's an obligation given to the Peter Parker player. You may flip to alter ego form. Of course, choose 1. Exhaust Peter Parker, remove this from the game. Or discard a card at random from your hand. This card gains Surge. Discard this obligation. And this definitely, to me, felt like not over much of a penalty, primarily because Peter Parker gets a free resource every round, and then when he flips to Spider-Man, if he gets attacked, he gets a free card. So I never really felt like light on cards.
Discarding a card for Spidey's not a big deal at all.
It didn't feel that horrible. And of course, you're down a card going into the turn. But if you choose to flip to Peter Parker, the thing is your hand size is going up in the next round. So it's a little this, little that.
Yeah, that's the easiest one I've seen.
Definitely the least lethal obligation.
Which does make some sense if you're considering like how many eviction notices Peter Parker's probably just had to sweep under the rug.
Yeah, well, and it's also like you have your throne being challenged or your rent's due. Like,
those are very different vibes.
there's a little different, Anyways, a king versus a teenager. I mean, the obligations are obviously a little lighter on the teenager.
King versus a teenager.
And I love this. I'm telling you, this Spider-Man stuff is just fueling my childhood here.
To answer this question from Grant, while we've got it, every hero has one of these in their deck. You actually put 1, so if I come to the table, my obligation goes into the encounter deck, right? And then your obligation goes to the encounter deck, everybody's
So in Arkham, it goes in your deck.
Yeah.
In this game, it goes in the actual deck that you're playing against.
There's no bad things in your deck in this game, right?
No, unless you put bad cards.
Deck builder. All of them go into the main encounter deck, and then they come up as essentially as a group problem.
And someone was asking, what Surge is, and Surge is basically when it gets revealed, you're going to reveal another card. So it just keeps stacking stuff up. And then I saw someone as well asking if we ever found the answer to how many cards you can have in your deck. So you can run 3 of any card. The signature cards are set. You can't change those. If a card is unique, it is naturally limited 1 per deck. And then there are cards that are also max 1 per deck. You'll see that on the thing. And we've seen that. So you get the 4 aspects, and then you get neutral cards, and you get 4 of each of those in a core set. But I was kind of doing the math, and there's 5 cards that are specifically 1 per deck, and 2 that are unique. So 7 of the 11, each deck can actually only run 1 of, even if you wanted to run more of them. Still some people asking questions about that. Anyways, back to the Spider-Man side of things.
This one looks fun. I haven't actually seen the cards.
Look at it. That cartoon reminds me. It's crazy. Highway robbery, the side scheme. When revealed, each player places a random card from their hand face down here, which is hilarious.
Okay.
When defeated, return each face down card here to its owner's hand.
All right.
And then, of course, it starts with 3 threat, and it adds 1 acceleration.
3 per player.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's right, 3 per player.
But what happens to those face down cards? I feel like those are going to be relevant.
Well,
or is he's just robbing us, basically?
It's just holding your stuff hostage.
Okay.
So there's the Vulture, of course. He's unique. He's got 1 scheme, 3 attack.
Awesome.
It is cool art. I like the
First
glass
time we've seen
coming
Quick
across
Strike.
the thing. Yep. 4 health Quick Strike. After this minion engages your hero, it attacks. So
Very
it comes
cool.
out and immediately is hitting you for 3,
Yeah.
which is really cool.
Man, Larry's so right here. You can tell this game is designed by Nate Surge French.
We're going to pass that along to him. Next up, we have Sweeping Swoop. I love that. Spider-Man getting kicked. When revealed, stun your hero. If Vulture is in play, this card gains Surge. That's terrible. He's quick. It also has a boost ability if it gets revealed as a boost. If this activation deals damage to a friendly character, stun that character.
I hate stun.
Stunning.
It's the least. It's just like,
There's actually 2 Sweeping Swoops.
That's
Rolls
fantastic.
right off
The
the tongue
Vulture's
there.
so cool. Okay.
Yeah, I love the Vulture. He's super
Let's
cool.
get that on the record.
He's so cool.
Look at these cards, too.
All right, and then the Vulture's Plans is a Treachery card. When revealed, discard a card at random from each player's hand. Place 1 threat on the main scheme for each different resource type discarded this way. So each discard a random card for every different resource type, which is up to, if you're 4 players, 4 different things. You put 4 scheme, up to 4 scheme on the main scheme.
So a little bit of hand control. So stealing a card from you right off the bat.
Quick.
Which could be... So I did find myself, usually I was holding 1 card at the end of a turn, and I would often hold that same card multiple times because it would be like that one perfect, like my Gamma Slam for She-Hulk. It's like my one of that I really want to wait until it's the perfect moment. If Vulture were to snipe that or discard it with the plans, that would be very upsetting to me.
Yep.
So that's something worth noting. That hand control is actually very tough.
And that's all the Nemesis
That's
cards.
it. Yep, I think we did it.
Who's your favorite?
So the Vulture stuff.
Yeah,
I think
so good,
I think
right?
it makes a lot of sense, and it's kind of very straightforward. Of you're getting robbed, and then all of a sudden you're getting stunned. He felt very fast in Quick Strike. First time we've seen Quick Strike. But it was fun dealing with the throne usurping from Black Panther.
Yeah.
I remember just seeing that there, and I was like, strategy says that it's probably not the biggest thing to worry about right now, but like, I had the thematic pull.
You gotta go
to be
get your
like,
throne.
But he's sitting on. All right, well, let's get out of here. It looks like our mics may be off.
Give them some signs. Are we back up? All right, we're back up. Someone says, Zach, look over here. Not a flip off.
That was weird.
Jeremy said, look like you all are having such a great conversation. All right, so here's what we found out, if you didn't hear it, is that when you flip over a card that says to get your Nemesis, you grab your Nemesis and you take that minion, you put it into play, and he immediately engages you as your hero. And the rest of the cards in this Nemesis stack go to the discard pile. And so basically, once you work your way through the encounter deck, they'll shuffle back in, and they'll now start showing up as part of the deck for the rest of the game, even if the side scheme goes away.
Yeah, and that actually makes these more devastating than even I think we were realizing.
I mean, I think imagining like Whiplash immediately coming out and engaging Iron Man, right? And if you have, if Vulture comes out and just hits you, like, I mean, he immediately pops in and punches Spider-Man. Like, that's not cool. Not cool, bro. And Titania is immediately on She-Hulk, right?
There were some games or moments last night where, you know, you were riding the line.
I was
like
at 2 health a lot.
health, and so Vulture just coming out and boom.
And I didn't realize the risk I was running.
Yeah.
Right? Because I was like, I always have a way to like block with an ally or something, but like he immediately engages you, and it's game on.
Yeah, very cool. So side team comes out, Nemesis engages you, and the rest of them go to the discard pile. And when this happens, it can totally change the course of a game. So as you're playing through, you can play a lot of the same encounters kind of over and over again. And sometimes you might see 3 or 4 Nemesi if you have 4 players, or sometimes you might see none of them and they'll just contribute those 3 boost icons to
and
the
I think
boost.
the more I'm learning about how these encounter decks get constructed, and the adding in the Nemesis element makes it feel like there's a lot of legs in terms of how many times you can play this. Because you have the main villain, right, and all those cards, but then each villain essentially has a 1 or 2 or 3 like plots that you add in, and those plots are rotational. So like they recommend a certain one to start with, but those mix it up, and then you on top of that you have the Nemesis that are going to mix it up. And so like even in the same way that like a hero has their signature cards, but then you get to pick the other 60%. Every version of a deck is going to feel probably a little bit different, and every version of the encounter deck is going to start like different combinations of cards are going to be pretty rough.
They've done a very good job of having enough random, I think so far at least. Maybe by the time we get 10 to 20 plays in, it might feel a little derivative, but or a little repetitious, I should say. But for now, it looks like there's enough random pops to this stuff that it really creates a dynamic feeling environment.
And I think the other things to me are like a certain amount of games you'll want to play just to start figuring out your deck. Doesn't even matter what's out here, right?
Yeah.
It's just like figuring out the right cards and how many to have of each thing. And then just I forgot what I was going to say after that.
Well, there's nothing more to consider.
We're out of here.
All right, so let's do, how many aspects we got? We got 4 aspects total.
4 aspects.
So let's see if we can get them done. We've got to go actually interview Eric at 1. So I think we can get there. We're going to run through these aspects somewhat quickly, starting with leadership, right? People voted for leadership?
People voted for leadership.
All right, so we'll be right back. We're going to close out the stream and get right back online, and we will see you there.